I'm going to be presenting my mini project 4, which involved taking my blog post application and basically giving it a React front end. So over here, we can see that we have two main folders, back end and front end. And we're going to start with the front end because that's where most of the changes took place. So in front end, we have our source and pages. Pages are where all of our different React components are stored. And then we have below that, we have our app.css and app.js. Now, app.js is where everything starts. So this is where we're going to import our universal style sheet, app.css. And then we're also going to import all of our various JSX files. So like our home, sign in, sign up, and edit post pages. And then down here, we have a function to create our app. And that starts us off by assigning paths to our different JSX files. And so with our root element here, we have our home page. And if we go to home.jsx, we can see sort of what the structure for all of our JSX files is going to look like. We have our import of React and Axios up at the top. And then we have a function for our entire page, whatever it may be. And then we create state variables that we may need. So in the case of our home page, we create state variables for our set user and or our user and post variables. And then also new post for when the user goes to create a new post. Now, this use navigation here allows us to directly redirect the user from code. And then down here, we have a function that every time the page loads, it will refetch our blog post data from our database. And here is actually the fetch data function. So you can see that it'll try to query our backend to get all of the posts from our database. And then it'll use that information to populate our posts and our user information. But if it fails, then it'll throw an error. And then down here, we have our individual functions for creating posts, deleting posts, signing out the user. And each of those have a slight variation on the same formula. So we try to query our database by tapping into our backend. And then when we try that, if it succeeds, then we'll refetch data to refresh the list. But if not, then we log an error. And then below all those, we have our final component of all these JSX files, which is the return, which contains all of our page content, essentially. And our page content is in the format of React components. And so we're returning these div containers and mixed in like HTML styling and all that. And so that formula stays fairly consistent for all of our front-end components. But then if we go to our backend, then we can see what some of our actual logic is looking like. So index.js is where everything starts. And so we import all of our necessary packages. We set our port that we're going to be hosting on and our middleware, and then we set up routes. And the first thing that we do is we create a new PG client to access our database, and it's filled in with all of our local database information here. And then we connect to the database, and that gives us access to the database that we'll be using in our user authentication functions here and our host functions. So user authentication handles things like signing in, signing out, and then posts will handle things like our edit post, create a blog post, and then update and delete. So up front, all of our JSX files, what they're going to do is, like right here, they're going to post or send some sort of request to our backend. And so, for instance, this is going to our sign-in page, right? And so if we go to our authentication JS file, then it's going to take us to this. It's going to take us to our post sign-in. And then essentially, all of our files are just a mix of our front end and back end communicating in this manner. So that is my mini project 4.